I don't know how people survive. I mean, we might as well just give people what we're talking surviving. We're all surviving, right? Right now, you know, in life, we're all surviving. It feels like that at the moment. I think we're living in dark, polarized times where you can't seem to have an opinion that isn't sort of in some sort of middle ground. You've got to be dragged to the left or dragged to the right, and you know that there's. I think we are in difficult times, so we're all kind of surviving. But for people who have no idea who I am, I suppose I'll just put it out there. You know, I am. Last month I celebrated 14 years clean / sober after 20 years of pretty savage heroin addiction, alcoholism, crack cocaine, homelessness, and all the lovely stuff that goes with that. So surviving that, absolutely. But like I say, I think we're all kind of survivors at the moment. We'll just put the plug in now, shall we? The book's called Too High, Too Far, Too Soon, which comes from the Waterboys song, The Whole of the Moon. I'm sure plenty of your listeners will be hopefully more than familiar with Mike Scott and the Waterboys. And as I was writing it, you know, my daughter's here with me now, not in the room. She's with my wife next door. She's 12 now, but she was 6 when I no, she was 5 when I actually sat down. I wrote the book in the summer of 2012. I wasn't too crazy on London Olympics or anything like that. It was a fairly damp summer, as I recall, and I had the time to sit down and write the book. And there was parts of it where I thought, well, okay, one day Tabitha's going to be old enough to read this. My mum wasn't so much of a problem, sadly, because she has dementia and she's in her late 80s now. And I don't think she'd have got past the first sentence anyway. It would have been a bit like someone handing me a book written in Hindu, spelt backwards. It wouldn't have made any sense to her. And although at the time she did say, "Oh, I can't wait to read it," I said, "Mum, you don't need to read it. You don't need to. You just need to know that I'm okay, and I am okay." And sadly, over the years, you know, that's no longer an issue. And as for Tabitha, I won't lie that there was some stuff that didn't go in the book that I felt didn't need to go in the book. I mean, you've read it, and for other people that have read it or perhaps might read it, I think I did enough of the dark stuff, you know. There's always more, but I didn't feel the need to write it. So maybe my daughter won't read it, you know. Who knows? Maybe I'm flattering myself. I've been asked it a lot. I think this really comes down to my own personal understanding of what I consider addiction to be, and that's just my understanding. You know, I want to be clear about that. You know, my understanding is mine, and other people might have others, and it doesn't matter. You know, we're not trying to win votes about what it is and what it isn't. My understanding of addiction is the word dis-ease, and I separate the word. It's not disease, it's dis-ease, because I always felt, way before some of the tragic events that you've already mentioned happened, I always kind of felt a little bit ill at ease with myself. I never really felt like I felt comfortable within me. Now, as you've already said, you know, I lost my dad when I was 11. My aunt had died 2 years prior to that, and she was like a maiden aunt. You know, she spent so much time with me and my sister. She committed suicide. One of my classmates, who I was really close to, dropped dead in front of me when I was 10. My father died when I was 11. My grandfather, who basically replaced him, died less than 18 months later. There was the abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse at the boarding school. All of that obviously makes life seem really difficult. And when I found something, and I found music before I found drugs, right? Let's go with that. You know, I went to see the Jam when I was 12, and my life changed forever because I found something in which I could escape. wholeheartedly. So we're talking 1979 when my old fella died, and I saw the Jam in 1981. I was 12 and a half actually. So that became an escape. Music, became an escape, and it worked, right? And there's no harm in being obsessed with music or football. I found football. I went to see Liverpool in 1980. So both those things served me perfectly well as a way to be obsessed. I mean, being obsessed by Liverpool Football Club in 1980 and the Jam in 1980, I was on a winning streak, right? But then, of course, there was all that tragedy. And so my understanding is that certain people seem to be wired up in a slightly different way to other people. See them kids you're at school with, right? And they were like, oh yeah, I'm into this band, and then a week later they were into another band, and then they were into kind of whatever was on top of the pops, right? But for some of us, it's like we find our tribe and we find what works for us, and it resonates deeply within us, and that's it. We're signed up till the death, literally, unfortunately, in some people's cases. So to answer your question, which I'm trying to answer the question, I gave up trying to figure out whether I or anyone else was born an addict or not, because I don't know. And as far as I'm aware, there are no eminent scientists or philosophers or psychologists who can argue, with a watertight case one way or the other. In the same way that there doesn't seem to be a watertight cure for alcoholism or addiction. There are lots of things, and whatever works for someone works, right? The circumstances of my early life certainly provided a really fertile ground for when I discovered substances. So, the first time I got stoned was just like, okay, this is kind of nice, right? And then, getting stoned, listening to, I don't know, the fucking Doors, I guess, when you're 13, and it's that's a rite of passage, I think, for a lot of people, The thing with addicts, as I understand it, is that once we've kind of started using substances, then we will continue to use whatever comes next, because everything seems to have a bit of a timeline on it. So what I'm saying is, if smoking weed had done what it did for me when I first started, a few years after I was still smoking it, I might not have progressed any further. But throw in amphetamines and cider and acid, and it's a fairly standard progression for a lot of people who end up with addiction problems, because they all seem to do the job slightly better than the previous substance had. So people like me will just keep going. I don't know if that answers your question or not. We just keep going. Here's this, right? So I got to LA in '86, right? So it was a cup, the World Cup in Mexico. Was it '84?
Yeah, 86.
86, right? So I got there in September. So I met all these lads that had gone to Mexico, right? And there were Scots, there were Welsh, there were Manx, there were Scouts. All these working class lads that had either got some kind of redundancy or had looked around them, and we know what the state of the country was like for working class people back then. It was like, there's fucking nothing going on here. We got Thatcher, dismantling industries and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not going to turn this into a political rant, but we know what we're talking about, So it wasn't just me that, people had just kind of, there was this kind of, I think the posh word is this kind of diaspora of this movement of people that had somehow managed to just get themselves far away from home. I mean, the Scots and the Irish. I remember being in the middle of the fucking desert in Mexico, right, on this mad trip to Mexico. I mean, literally nothing for 300 miles. I find this bar. There's two people in the bar. one's from Glasgow, the other one's from Belfast. You laugh, but it's not surprising, right? I think as much as I had this idea to just get away from my tatty little seaside town, as I called it, there was a lot of people, I think, just on their toes, you know, getting away. And I was just one of them. And I kind of, you know, maybe I did say to my mum, I'm going to go to LA and be a film star. I think what I was actually subconsciously saying is I just need to get away. You know, I just need to get away from this, you know, and you know, to be clear, you know, I come from a little seaside town called Weston-super-Mare. It was in no way being affected by the economics of the country. You know, it's just this kind of seaside town, right? I mean, it was full of fucking skinheads and National Front and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we weren't suffering mass unemployment. We didn't have, you know, industries being shut down. I just thought to myself, there's nothing going on here for me. So here's maybe another part of the answer to the question you asked about what makes someone an addict, right? So I'd been in LA for 6-8 months, and I was living in this suburb called Venice Beach, which was where the doors. I mean, the building we lived in, actually, Jim Morrison used to live there. Right, there was a plaque on the door. So by day, it's this kind of really lively, vibrant. The boardwalk there, there's people selling, you know, clothes. There's shops, there's restaurants, there's dudes juggling chainsaws. There's the really famous guy that used to ride around on roller skates playing guitar, you know. But at night time, it's a different animal altogether. Back then, you know, nighttime is it's dangerous. So, you know, I'd be lying in my little bed in this studio flat we're living in, you'd hear gunshots, and there was gangs, because that epidemic of crack cocaine had really kicked in by that point. And you know, there's money to be made, and the local gang, I think they were called the Venice Shoreline Crips, and there was this Mexican gang called the V13. I mean, they were just killing each other. And, you know, even by day, you kind of walk about the neighborhood and you'd see addicts, you'd see, you know, crack addicts. And you know, they didn't look like they're having much fun. But, you know, they weren't like doing some kind of, hey, this shit's great, right? It looked fucking frightening. But when someone put it in front of me, but, you know, as you know, just at a circumstance, I didn't think twice. And maybe that's part of the thinking of people with addictive tendencies, personalities, whatever you want to call it, is that I guess most people would have gone, I'm not going to start on that stuff, you know. You know, the sort of Zammo from Grange Hill, you know, it was kind of like, why did Zammo go yes when everyone else was saying no? Because we don't think about the consequences, because it's like, okay, yeah, we'll just do this, you know, and then you're into it, you know. And if you're like me, you know, we have an expression in recovery, you know, which is the first one does the damage. And so for people who have these kind of, who are wired up like me, you know, you start with something that fundamentally changes how you feel, takes you out of self. You're into it. That's it. You're away, you know. And that's kind of pretty much how I was with anything, you know. I mean, my first addiction was gambling, fruit machines. I grew up in a seaside town, there were amusement arcades everywhere. That was an addiction, you know. So I went from, you know, Liverpool and music to Liverpool music and fruit machines to Liverpool music and fruit machines and hash, and Liverpool music, fruit machines, hash, speed, you know, so on and so forth. And then you get much less of the first stuff, and eventually you're just left with whatever substance it is that does the job for you the most effective way, which sadly for me ended up with heroin. I'll tell you something. I mean, I didn't mention in the book, but it will resonate with you guys up in Scotland. See that plane that I flew over on, right? I remember walking onto the 747, right? It was a Pan Am 747 from LA back to London. And as you say, you know, I was smoking crack on the plane, you know, passed out in the toilet, woke up, you know, in London, and did it. That plane flew on to Germany, was turned around in Germany, refueled, and exploded over Lockerbie 2 days later. It was the same plane. I don't know who makes the rules about who survives life, right? And I'm answering the question here, is that when I saw what had happened at Lockerbie, I could only think about me. Like, as awful as that sounds, my first thought was me. Fucking hell, you know, I was on that plane. My first thought wasn't for the 300 something souls that were killed. And that's just addict thinking. It's terrible, right? It's terrible. I'm not going to apologize for it. It's fucking terrible. But addiction is so self-centered. It's all about me. When you're caught up in it, it's just about you. So seeing my poor mum, and the line I used, you know, we both started crying for different reasons. She, because she'd not seen me for a year, and I guess she was expecting, I don't know what she was expecting, like David Hasselhoff to come through the door, you know, Baywatch, suntan, been in LA for a year. And she got a skeleton, you know, she got this emaciated crackhead. And I was still only 20 years old, right? I suspect my tears were for me, and the fact that I was on a massive come down, having been smoking crack every day for I don't know how long by that point. So when people are trying to help an addict, you know, this is the biggest cliche of them all, but it's the truest of them all. If that addict isn't ready to quit, they ain't going to quit. And the real tragedy of that is that for some people, they'll never be ready. You know, I think I told you when we spoke on the phone the other day, I'm currently trying to help my friend's dad organise his funeral. I lost one of my absolute best mates less than 2 weeks ago. You know, Scouser, massive Liverpool fan, old school Coppite, you know, back in the day, home and away, every game when you could, you know, jib it into the ground. Grew up watching, you know, Keegan as a kid and Kenny, you know, the King. And one of the loveliest, most gentle, soulful, beautiful human beings, right, you'd ever meet. This guy he was a black belt in Aikido. He had a PADI deep water diving instructor certificate. He could build a fucking house with his bare hands out of anything. You know, he was not an uncapable human being, right? But his addiction killed him. At one point, he was 7 years clean, and he relapsed, and he lived 2 minutes from my house, and he was found dead in his flat the other day. I'd been trying to help him for years. Countless of his friends, you know, he'd done in the last few years 3 stints in rehab. He'd been on my sofa I don't know how many times clucking it out, and other friends and other people. And he kind of wanted it, right? He did want it. He didn't want to use anymore. And he'd had clean time, you know, long fucking time. But addiction doesn't care about anything. Addiction is, if you could bottle it, you know, if you could bottle it, you'd have the world's most powerful weapon. Because it just, we don't understand it, really, truly. You know, it's with you know, you see how we are now with COVID, right? And thankfully, you know, there's a lot of really smart people all over the world putting the hours in to try and get an understanding of this virus. And in 3 or 4 months, we have exponentially more information about this thing that we probably knew very little about, because people have kind of got, right, you know, let's get into this. Let's because, you know, addiction isn't a vote winner. You know, addiction to a lot of people is still down to that individual. It's their fault. They're weak-willed. They're scum. They fucking deserve it. I've had all these things leveled at me over the years, you know, even by people who've read the book. You know, some of the reviews, I mean, I try not to read reviews, but were like, what a sad individual, right? So you know, speaking to my friend's dad down the phone, I've never met this guy, his dad. He's an 80-year-old. He lives in Newcastle now. And he said, was there anything we could have done? And I had to say to him, Stuart, no, we did everything we could do. I think sometimes, you know, an addict, alcoholic, it's the same thing. Well, alcohol's a drug, you know, I don't have to tell you, you know, the damage, it kills more people than the rest of the drugs put together. Sometimes I think the individual sees a kind of window of opportunity and they genuinely and sincerely want to quit. But the quitting is sometimes the easy bit. It's the staying.
Yeah.
Stops. Mm-hmm. That's where the work really happens. You know, I mean, you know, God willing, I never have to do another heroin fucking withdrawal in my life, you know, but I did a lot of them. I know what happens, you know, it's not nice. It's really not nice. Mentally, it's fucking awful, and alcohol's the same. But I've done them, and you kind of, you know, you've got to get through some days, weeks, whatever, and you'll know you start to feel better. But then what do you do? How do you stay stopped, you know, and how do you get into life and live in a society that celebrates being off your head? See, when my daughter Tabitha was born 12 years ago, we had this like humanist. I'm not a religious person, by the way, you know, like, people are not, but I'm just not. So we had this humanist kind of ceremony for her, you know, instead of having a christening. And so, you know, she's got godparents, you know, a godfather and a godmother, and I had some close friends. We had a Jewish friend of mine, a Hindu, a couple of Christians, a Sikh. You know, these are just friends. I live in Hackney, right? We're blessed with this kind of multicultural thing. But there were also 4 members of my, you know, my recovery is based in 12-step recovery, right? So there were 4 members of my local Narcotics Anonymous meeting at that ceremony. They were all really good friends of mine, and they were all clean at the time. There was Kevin, a friend of mine, Earl, a friend of mine, Luke, and a friend of mine called Carrie. They're all dead. And the thing about being in recovery, in the way I do my recovery, which, like I say, is, you know, 12-step is what's worked for me. It's not for everybody. I'm not an evangelist. It's none of my business what people do. It just works for me. I don't try and sell it to people. But when you join the tribe, and I've used that word a couple of times already since talking to you, you know, we are tribal people. Look, this is a football podcast. We know about tribalism. It's kind of what we do.
Certainly do.
So when we find our tribe, you know, we sign up to the joy, to the good times and the bad times, and we know that some people ain't going to make it. You know, we know this, right? And but it's the you know, they say it's the hope that kills you, right? But that's what you sign up for. It's like, it's not even, it's kind of like not even a conscious choice. It is what it is. We find where we fit. We find our people, and we love them, and we try and lift them up, and we stay with them because we're tribal people, and that's really how I think recovery kind of works best for me, because it's my tribe. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I recovered. So, you know, I went from living in Los Angeles. This was the end of '88, right? And I went back to Western-super-Mare, and, you know, I spent a month pretty much in the back room at my mum's, drinking whiskey, smoking weed, crying my eyes out, thinking, oh, I don't know what's happened here. My mum, bless her, didn't have a clue what was going on. But I just, you know, there was no crack cocaine in Western-super-Mare, but what there was in 1989 and 1990, you know, was other drugs, you know, and I landed in the middle of the, you know, acid house. I didn't stay in Western-super-Mare very long. I went to Glastonbury, following summer, and it's written about in the book, and I discovered ecstasy, and I was away. And I had a good time. So that was 30 years ago this weekend, as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Monday's headline that's Saturday or this Sunday. So what the event you were talking about now is meeting Happy Mondays, meeting Bez. Bez needed me to sort something for Sean. I could do it, so I did, and they rewarded me with this big bag of pills, and I found something else that perfectly allowed me to live within me again, if that makes any sense, and I had a good time. I had a really good time for a number of years. I get asked, I have been asked over the years to go into schools and colleges and deliver a just say no to drugs message, and I won't do it. I will not do it, because it's not true. It doesn't ring true to me. It's not, it's not my truth. Most people, thankfully, have a kind of journey through substances, and have, for the most part, a load of positive experiences, and then when those experiences aren't that positive, they kind of stop. I think it's called growing up. That's what people do. My concern, and the thing that I will always speak about, is addiction. I'm not speaking to people that can go out on a Friday night, have a few lagers, a bit of this, that, the other. If they're doing the school run on Monday morning and going to work, and there's food on the table, I don't care. More power to you, man. That's another thing. I think that sometimes people have a lot of misconceptions about what recovery is, that it's some kind of anti-drugs thing. For me, it's not that at all. We are in Narcotics Anonymous, concerned with people who think they may have a problem with drugs. And if you've got a problem, we might be able to help. That's it. So 30 years ago this weekend was that particular Glastonbury that we just talked about. Up to that point, I was just some, hip, kind of like bumming around, sort of trying to get something to smoke, kind of, I was just buying bits of hash here, just being a young man who liked getting stoned and drinking and taking drugs, that kind of changed everything that weekend. And I think I'm not ducking the question here. Do I regret it? No. Would I do it now? Absolutely not. Would I want my daughter to be involved in selling drugs? Absolutely not. Do I condemn it? No. Right? How things appeared to me at that time, and I'll only speak for me, but people of my age, our generation, it seemed like everybody was at it. It just seems like that's, in 89, 1991, 92, it was kind of like, we'd go down the pub on a Tuesday night and have a couple of eckies, what I mean? It was just normal. If you were in that group of people, you talk to older people in the 60s, and if they're honest, they'll tell you, look, not everybody was smothered in patchouli oil and prancing up and down the King's Road. It was a very small percentage of people, that kind of like first summer of love stuff and the hippies and all that kind of. It was a really small percentage. Most people were just going to work, going, look at you bloody hippie, But by the early 90s, things had changed, and I have this kind of idea about the kind of flow chart of drug culture and music, that if you kind of look at the mid 60s and the whole mod thing, it was angry, and it was up all night, and it was driven by amphetamines and all that kind of, so everybody goes up, right? And then it all gets a bit psychedelic and acid and downers, and people come down, and you get this first wave of heroin addiction in the sort of really early 70s, and people on barbiturates and heavy downers, you know, and that's probably what gave us prog rock, which is fucking awful, really. That's the biggest consequence of it all. There you go. But then thankfully, you know, the New York Dolls and McLaren got onto it, and all of a sudden we had the Ramones, and we had the Pistols over here, and we had punk rock, and you know, the Skids. So I'm talking to a Scotsman, and amphetamine, and everybody was up again and going, you know, jumping around and going nuts. And then that all kind of petered out, and another wave of heroin. So there's this kind of, you know, and by the early 90s, right, the whole ecstasy thing was, you know, there was more cocaine coming back into it, and you know, one of the well-documented byproducts of the whole E thing was that the whole football casual thing kind of just went away.
Yeah,
you know, you'd be out raving with a Rangers fan going, fucking look, maybe not. I love you, brother.
that's the one example that maybe not.
Yeah, that's why I said it. But you get my point, right? Your people were just standing around in fields, and it didn't matter where you were from or what team you supported. It was, you know, you were kind of on this substance, and then it got really dark again. You know, that's what happened. It got dark, and the gangsters moved in, and the drug, and you know, by the mid 90s, the heroin thing had become a real thing again, and so those good years were good, but by Nebworth in 96, I was strung out with a serious heroin problem again, and but you can hide, you know, in the music industry. I mean, the double standard is this, right? So before I left Nebworth, and for those of you who haven't read the book, I didn't get to see Oasis, right? I was there, I was on the guest list. I got there in the middle of the afternoon. I was fucking wired on crack and all sorts of shit like that, and wandering around backstage, and by that point, you know, it was known that the Cat in the Hat was a junkie, and people was not talking to me anymore. You know, you can walk around backstage with coke falling out your nose, making an absolute tit of yourself. No one will bat an eyelid, you know. But the hypocrisy is, oh, they're on heroin, oh, they're scum. You know, I don't know if I'm assuming people who listen to this have had that experience where you're stood next to someone who's got so much coke up their nose, and they're just sort of barking at you, and just sort of think, oh mate, fuck off. Do you know? But heroin, oh, it's awful. And so I went into a toilet to have a hit, because I was strung out and I was withdrawing, and I discovered that I didn't have my stash with me, and you know, you're not allowed to walk around backstage at a festival going, you got any heroin, because people will throw things at you and throw you out, you know. So I left, I went home, I missed the show, and I would say that to me was really the beginning of the end for me. But as you know, you read the book, I had another 10 years to go before I got clean.
Yeah.
So we you know, back then Camden was the kind of, you'd be in the pub just on a Tuesday, you know, and you'd have Noel over there and Jarvis Cocker over there, and you know, that's just how it was. There was a lot of people in a quite small part of North London, and you know, I was still doing what I was doing, and people were like, yeah, you know, see him, Simon, blah blah blah. Anyway, we go and see a band, I don't know who it is, and I end up talking to Noel, and we'd already met, obviously, you know, a couple of years previously, and he comes back to mine, and at stupid o'clock in the morning, after we've been sat there doing coke all night, he's like, yeah, I won't try and do a Manc accent, because I just won't. So he'd had another big falling out with Liam, and he picked up this book of my lyrics at the side of the sofa now, and he's reading the lyrics, and he's gone, these are much better than mine, I've had it with him, do you want to, he's gone, I fucked him off, do you want to be the singer in Oasis? To which there's only one answer, obviously, you know, particularly when you've done about 3 grams of coke. It's like, you know, yeah, man. Anyway, I thought I'd celebrate the imminent sort of departure of Liam from Oasis to be replaced by yours truly by going into my toilet and whacking up a big hit of heroin. And I overdosed. And I woke up however many hours later to find Noel had gone. And I think I'm right in saying that was the last time I ever spoke to him. So yeah, my role as singer in Oasis probably lasted about half an hour from when he asked me to when it was that I went and thought doing some smack was a good idea. And I'm laughing, right, because you have to laugh at this sort of stuff. The reality would have been that had I actually done that, had I actually become the singer, their third album would have been even worse than it was anyway, and B, I'd have been dead within a month. To have that level of, to have that kind of money, right, for one thing, to be surrounded by those kind of sycophants that inhabit that world, you know, where once you're the locomotive of someone's gravy train, you know, people don't want to say no to you. You know, they will keep you going whilst there's money to be made out of you. And you know, the tragic one of the most recent examples of that is of course Amy Winehouse. You know, where that girl needed to just go away for a few years, and everyone just needs to fucking leave her alone, and have some people that genuinely gave a shit about her, you know, and just let her be, and she might still be alive, you know. But people weren't going to let that happen, were they? You know, and that's the tragedy of it. And you're right, you know, the list is way too long. Again, here we are, 30 years, you know, it's Glastonbury weekend, right? So I was on the iPlayer yesterday and I look back at that first Oasis performance at Glastonbury, that I was there for that side of the stage. And a bit controversial this, but I didn't think it was all that good. It was all right. I watched it yesterday. I thought it was all right. I mean, they went on to do amazing stuff, right? And Noel, if you're listening, you know, sorry about that. But the following year, and I actually was writing about this to someone the other day, that when the Roses were supposed to headline, and they cancelled because I think John Squire fell off his mountain bike and fractured his shoulder bone or whatever. So Pulp came in to do it, right? Now, for me, that headline slot by Pulp in Glastonbury in 1995 was what I would consider the kind of high watermark of the whole Britpop thing. I was there, and Jarvis Cocker, before they finished with Common People, he made this really remarkable kind of little speech, and he was talking about, he said how, you know, Pulp had been going for like 10 years and they'd been completely ignored, and then they kind of got caught up in that Britpop thing, and you know, Different Class was an amazing album, and His and Hers, and they end up getting this headline slot, and just before they go into Common People, he said, you know, so if a skinny git like me can get here, if you really want something, if you really, really want it, you can make it happen, and it will happen. That's why we're here tonight. And then he said something that I wish I'd been listening, Paul, you know, at the time, because he nailed it. He said, you know, you can't buy anything worth having. You can't buy feelings. You can't buy anything worth having. This is Common People, and they do, and that to me that's it. That nails it. That nails everything in my philosophy in life, really, at the moment. You know, unfortunately for me, whilst he was saying that, I had my head buried in some girl's tits because I was dribbling fucking off mad on ecstasy at the side of the stage. And I didn't really catch it, but I've watched it on the iPlayer again. Right, so you know, I think Pulp don't get spoken about enough. Really, I thought they were a fantastic band. I just, there were a lot of bands, you know, that you kind of thought could go on and really, really do something. I think Dodgy are a great band, you know, were a great band. I thought they could write a pop song in a way that a lot of people could only dream about, you know. Primal Scream on their day, you know, as good as anybody, but also as bad as anybody, depending on, I think, what they'd been up to before they went on stage. But you have to give kudos to Bobby, because he's just kept reinventing what they do, you know, and I think that's where the real bravery comes in for an artist, you know. Say what you want about Oasis, but they had kind of like 2 songs, you know, 2 really good ones, and then about 100 versions of those 2 songs, you know. And if that works for people, then fucking great. But But you know, when you look at people, and he's not, you know, someone like David Bowie, right? Constantly demanded stuff from his audience. Constantly was like challenging people to like come with me on this journey. And I don't think we have too many of those guys around at the moment. You know, I came back from LA and you know, I random chance met someone whose brother was kind of in a band, and I'd never really thought about being in the band. And so I think, like a lot of people, I kind of went into it. It's like, this is great, you know. Back then, you could be signing on and you get your rent paid, and you know, different times, right? You could just go to the job centre and you done any work, you'd be like, nah, and they give you a bit of money and you get your rent paid. So that provided a really fertile ground for young people, I think, you know, to sort of sit around and just practice their art, whatever that might be. And you know, the band I was in was never going to go anywhere. And then I went to see the Roses in '89. It was like, okay, that's the way forward. And I went back from that Roses gig, and I was talking to the bass player of my band, and he was like, well, I was thinking of getting in a more Fleetwood Mac kind of direction. So that was the end of that band. I, you know, I ain't gonna lie. I was just a chancer. I couldn't really sing. I knew I could write. I knew I could write words. You know, I don't. In case you hadn't guessed, I don't believe in false modesty. Right. I think no matter what you do for a living, whether you're a bricklayer or a plumber or a brain surgeon, right, you can come home from work and know you've done a good day's work, or conversely that you haven't. You know. I don't think we really need other people to tell us that. We know, right? So I knew I could write, but I couldn't play anything. I was lazy. I smoked way too much weed. I couldn't be asked to learn an instrument. So I was always kind of in need of other people, because I'd need a guitar player. I need, you know, and my singing was, because I drank too much, was usually out of tune, and you know. But I started to get an idea, you know, all those years ago that I could bring something to the table, you know. Pete Townsend is my favourite songwriter of all time, because of the way he plays guitar, which is the way he plays guitar. But I've always been about lyrics. You know, Bob Dylan. You know, I mean, Bob Dylan can't sing. He doesn't have to sing. You know, he just, the words. You know, whether it's Leonard Cohen. You know, I love people like that. Ray Davies. You know, people Weller. You know, again. You know, all those kind of guys. So I was just thrashing around in the dark for years, if I'm honest. And then as my addiction kind of got hold, and the whole Britpop thing, there's no way I could have been the singer with Oasis. No way on God's earth, you know what I mean? Liam Gallagher was the only guy that was ever going to front that band, you know. And when they were great, they were truly great, you know, and he really had something in them, you know. So it wasn't until I got clean, right? So I got clean in 2006. And one of the things I think that's really important in early recovery is to find some stuff that you like doing, that makes you happy, you know, whether it be golf, fishing, playing music, making paper mache penises, whatever, you know, whatever makes you happy. So I met these bunch of guys that were all in recovery, and we were like, oh man, should we put a band together and have a bit of a laugh, you know, but maybe we could do some gigs for charity, for addiction charities. And the only rule of the band is we don't do our own material, because then you can't really fall out. You can't have musical differences when you're a covers band, as far as I'm aware, you know. So we were like, okay, we're going to do the Stones, we're going to do the Velvet Underground, we're going to do Bowie, we're going to do Dylan, and our set list was based around all that kind of stuff. And I was the singer, and that's when I learned to sing, Paul, if I'm honest with you. You know, in sobriety and recovery, having to sort of, you know, go from singing Bowie to some Stone stuff. I mean, we even did a version of Groove Is in the Heart. Like, we had a couple of girls in the band, and you know, it was like, let's entertain people.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So that's kind of where I learned to sing, right? And then when I was about a year clean, I was sat at home with my little portable telly watching Jules Holland, and this band came on. I'd never heard of them. I mean, you got to remember, by that point, I'd been kind of out of the game for 10, 12 years as far as what was going on in the world. I was a homeless heroin addict, begging most of that, or in rehab somewhere, or locked up. You know, I had no idea what was going on. I missed the libertines. I missed all that stuff. So I'm sat there and watching Jules Holland. This band called the Hold Steady came on, an American band, and I had the same sit up moment, like what the fuck, as I'd had when I saw the Jam all those years ago, when I saw the Smiths on Top of the Pops, when I saw Barry doing Boys Keep Swinging when I was like 10 or whatever, you know, when I saw the Roses for the first time. I was like, wow, something just resonated with me. And you know, they're an American band and they're a rock and roll band, but they had something. The guy, clearly, his words were incredible. The next day I ran out and bought all their CDs and I was completely obsessed. I went to see them live a few months later. I managed to blag my way in and blah, blah, blah. And I met the band, right? I met them in soundcheck. And at that point in my recovery, I was pretty much like anyone I met. Did you know I used to be on heroin? I'm clean now. And I was like, that was my conversation. It's as far as I could get. So I met this band and I pretty much said that, oh, I think you guys are great. By the way, I used to be a junkie and I'm clean now. And you're the first band I've seen in recovery. And they were like, hey man, nice to meet you. Well, this guy's fucking nuts. I was like really intense. Anyway, they do the show. They come back to do an encore. And they start there. It's the same song they always do, and they say, "We're the Hold Steady, and we're so grateful to be here." And you could feel the love. They're a band that they know they've done well, you know, to just even be playing in England. And the singer Craig Finn goes into this little spiel about, you know, how they're so happy to be here and they love this connection with their fans. And then he says, anyway, we met this guy earlier and he told us a little bit about himself. And so, Simon, this song's for you. This song's called Killer Party, Who's Almost Killed Me. And I just stood there going, oh my God, he's talking to me, you know, and everything changed again. Because I got the idea that recovery, the bottom line is always to stay clean, right? But you have to build a life that you value, that means something to you, whatever that is, right? Whatever that is. And it was like the flame of my, you know, my dreams from all those years ago, from when I'd seen the Jam as a kid, for the bands that I've been in that were rubbish. I was like a year and a half, 2 years clean. We had this kind of recovery band. I started to think, I want to do this again. Mm-hmm. I miss this. And that's kind of really, I would say, my, you know, it's not a career because I don't really, you know, make a living out of it, but I had that drive again. I had that love for it. I fell back in love with music in a way that I hadn't done since I was a teenager. And, you know, like I've said, I'm 14 years clean, which kind of means I'm 14 years old on some levels. Like emotionally, I feel like a teenager. So the recovery band faded away, and then what happened, and this brings me to something you spoke about it. I wrote the book, and the book started to do okay, and then I got a phone call from someone who is really close to a songwriter who I absolutely adore, a guy called Mick Head. Pale Fountains, Shack, you know, Red Elastic Bands, Magical Word of the Staff. So if you know who he is, right? And a lot of people don't, sadly, but I kind of like the fact that it's a sort of bit of a cult, really. But a genius songwriter. You know, he was up in Oran Moor, I think. Was it last year, the year before? You know,
A couple of years ago, I seen him. Yeah. With Edgar Summertime.
You know, with Edgar, right? Yeah. Now it's no secret that Mick's had his issues. You know, it's not a secret. So this friend of his said, look, you know, I'd like you to meet Mick because I think if he read your book, he might it might help, right? And I need to be careful what I say, but essentially, Mick and I became really good friends, and he needed a bit of help from me. He needed to get out of Liverpool for a little while. So 6 years ago now, I think, he came to stay with me in Hackney. He stayed for a month, and I said to him, look, Mick, before you go back to Liverpool, I want you to do a gig here, and I want you to do it sober. Because I can tell you all day long that you can do it, right? But that's just a theory to you. But if you actually do it, then it becomes a reality, and I don't need to tell you anymore. You'll know you can do it. And he looked at me and he was like, right, okay. So if I'm doing a show, you're going to be the opening act. And I was like, oh, fuck. That's kind of like fucking Kenny Dalglish going, "You're up front, mate. You know, here's your boots," or you know, insert your favourite player of all time, right? Now, my guitar had pretty much sat in the corner of my room at that point for a couple of years, you know, gathering dust, my acoustic guitar. Mick went and picked it up, literally blew the dust off it, tuned it up. And Tabitha was with us that night, and she was like 7, and she came into the front room. She's like, "Dad," you know, when kids like this want to stay up with the grown-ups, right? And she went, "Dad, I can't sit," pretending, rubbing her eyes and all that stuff that you do. And Mick looked at her and goes, "Tabitha, sit on your dad's knee." And he played an entire set of Shaq songs, just sat there in my front room in front of me. And he was in tears. I was in tears. I've got Tabitha in my arms, going to sleep. He played As Long As I've Got You, right? And literally I was just like gone, you know. And then he put the guitar down and he went, "You need to start playing the fucking guitar, mate." Again. Now, when Mick Head says something to you like that, what are you going to do?
That is a moment, Simon. That is a moment.
He said, "Sal, I'll do the gig, but you're the support act. You've got a week to get something together." And that's how Hightown Pirates started. Because we'd been on a walk a month or so earlier up in Liverpool on Crosby Beach, and we'd ended up in this pub, and he was really bevied up. But we were in this little suburb called Hightown, and he said, "This pub's like pirates, mate, fucking pirates." I'm like, "What, Hightown Pirates?" I'm having that as a name for something. I didn't know what it was going to be. So that's how we come up with the name. And then, like I say, he came to stay and all that happened, and he did the show. And I was the support act, and I can't tell you whether I was any good, probably not. But I thought to myself, if your first gig as an artist doing your own material is supporting Mick Head, then, you know, you've got to keep going, right? What I learned from Mick, right, as a songwriter, what I think personally for me, the genius about Mick Head is that he sings to you, not at you. It's that intimacy, you know, when you listen to Shaq songs, and there's very few artists that are able to do that. You know, there's nothing wrong with being shouted at. You know, like I said, the Who are my favourite band, really. You know, if I'm honest. But the way bands like Love sometimes, and Mick, and some of these kind of like Nick Drake's another really good example of that, and even Lou Reed could sing to you. And I think the art of a really, really good songwriter is that they can do both things. They can sing at you when they need to, but really more important than that, they can sing to you, and Mick could sing to you. And that's what he taught me. It's been a fucking pain in the arse, is what it is. After the thing with Mick, and I don't know how much time we got, but we're coming towards, you know, where I currently sit with all this at the moment. So after the thing with Mick, a little while later, I ended up going to do a similar thing. I was asked to go and work with the Libertines for a while, and just, you know, be the sober dude, and, you know. And so I ended up going on this 3-month tour with the Libs about 4.5 years ago. And as I said earlier, I'd missed them when they came out because I was using it. It passed me by, and I can't pretend that I was really a fan. I'd seen this kind of pretty shambolic performance at the Reading Festival, and I hadn't really bought into it, but, you know, it was a job, so I went and did it, and I got it. You know, the minute I saw them, I was like, now I get it. And so I was kind of side of stage for 3 months, and they did this Tours UK, and I suppose that's, you know, I had that kind of learning from Mick, you know, and then I had that whole shambolic rock and roll, crazy circus, Albion kind of world, you know, that they create. And I had no intention of forming a band, you know. At that point, I was still kind of working on the book and doing some other bits of writing. And I used to say to Peter Doherty all the time, you know, he'd say, "Oh, you know, the thing about you is you don't have to go on stage. It's all right being sober and clean, but, you know, you got..." And I said to him one night, "Well, fucking put me on stage then." So he said, "All right, I'm doing a solo tour after this. You're the support act." So I ended up doing this solo tour supporting Peter. So I was like reading stuff out of the book, playing a few songs, and we played we did the Barras, you know, 2 nights, which is, I ain't just saying it because I'm talking to you, but it's the best venue in the world. That's it. End of, you know, Glasgow, Barrowlands, Brixton Academy. Everyone else can fuck off. You know, that's kind of where it's at. But we were in Aberdeen after that. So if you're listening in Aberdeen, sorry, but you know. And after the show, someone came up to me and they asked about this song that I played that night. Like, they said, where can I get that song? And I'm like, you can't. It's not recorded. And they were like, well, you should record it. I'm like, well, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I ain't got any money. And they took my number. And I know I'm going on a bit, but they rang me a few weeks later. And I was in this studio with Peter. They were between shows and they were doing some demos at the studio down outside London. And this person said, look, I've been thinking, I think you should make an album, and I want to help you make an album. How much money do you need? Now, you know, that's the ultimate how long is a piece of string question, right? But I'm saying this from the point of recovery now, right? And if anyone's listening to this, by the way, and you think you're in trouble with drugs and alcohol, listen to this, right? I used to think that recovery, abstinence-based recovery, was some weary fucking trudge that meant spending the rest of my life sat in church halls drinking cold tea and eating soggy biscuits with a bunch of fucking, you know, that's what I used to think it was. My experience is that is not the truth. My experience has been that magical things happen, like some random stranger telling a kid who'd been obsessed with music since he was 12 years old that they thought his songs were good enough to warrant making an album and they were going to give me the money to do it, right? That's what happens if you stick around. That's what's happened to me anyway, right? So I had no band. I had a handful of songs. I had a load of songs from years ago when I was using that were half finished. I made 5 phone calls. I rang the drummer, the bass player, guitar player, another mate of mine. We had 5 rehearsals. And on the 6th day, we went to this studio called Doghouse Studios in Henley-on-Thames, and we recorded the first album in a week. You can't make this shit up. So your question was, how important to my recovery is it? So here's what happened. We recorded the album. It came out about a year later because we had to mix it and master it and get it on vinyl, this sort of stuff. It took a while. We didn't have any money. There's no, you know, we had no more money. And in the build up to the album, we got these amazing reviews. Q magazine likened it to the finer moments of Screamadelica and Arcade Fire, and they gave us this glowing review. And Louder Than War, you know, there's a writer, my friend Harry Mulligan, who is one of your mob, lives up in Edinburgh. You know, these amazing reviews. And we were like, man, this is going to be amazing. It's going to blow up and we're going to go and tour the world and blah, blah, blah. And it fucking bombed. It just disappeared without a trace. It had like a couple of thousand streams, right? So what do? Well, I just go and do another one. I don't go to the pub. I don't pick up a drink. I don't pick up a drug. I feel sorry for myself for a little while. I ain't going to lie, right? My pride and my ego are a bit fucking stung, right? But what I've learned in recovery is I don't have to use no matter what. It didn't even enter my mind, Paul, to use. I ain't gonna lie, you know, like with my friends that have passed away. It's some, you know, I just no, it's not happening. I listen. My kid's next door, right? I got no right to fucking use. She needs me. It's my only child, right? She's about to be a teenager. I mean, maybe that will fucking challenge me a bit because she's a good-looking girl. But my point is you know, to answer your question is so that's Hightown Pirates is now this band made up entirely of people that are sober. That's what we've evolved into. The first album, not so much the second one, but the lineup now is, you know, the studio we're going to record another record in is run by 2 people that are sober. The artwork is done by sober artists. The 2 guitar techs we've just taken on that are going to work for nothing are sober, right? Every musician is clean and sober. And we, you know, the album we just released, All of the Above, again, amazing reviews. incredible reviews, you know, from some really big websites getting to this. Louder Than Water again came back with this, you know, they like it. They said this is songwriting with the emotional maturity of Elliott Smith. I mean, that's a fucking compliment. Guess what happened? It bombed. Fucking bombed again. No one was interested. We couldn't get on the radio. We couldn't get a promoter. You know, no one, no. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care.
On album number 3.
Right. I've just waited 30 years to see Liverpool win the fucking title. My mates died. I couldn't go to the game. It's shit, really, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we've won the title. There's a part of me, when I get my grieving over for my friend Kevin, right? When we put him in the ground and give him a send-off, I'm going to Anfield on Saturday. I'm going to put some flowers there. I will cry my eyes out, you know, some flowers there for him. I might just be able to fucking celebrate the title once I've kind of got the grief out of the way. And then I'm going back in the studio and we're going to make another record and we're going to make a documentary film about all this. Who knows, right? But what I do know is that you know, I'm getting better as I get older. You know, just that's, you know, for me. And again, if I sound like I'm a bit conceited, that's not my intention. But you know, I didn't get clean to be bored, right? I didn't, you know. And again, if there's people listening to this that think recovery is boring, you know, I ended up begging outside a kebab shop in Stoke Newington, you know, trying to get a tenner together to inject heroin into my fucking neck, right? That's where I ended up. And I got clean. I found a way of staying clean that works for me. And I've become a parent, you know, I've traveled, I got divorced, I got remarried, I've been homeless, I've been unemployed, I've slept in my car, I've been to more funerals than anyone really should ever go to. I've been to a few weddings. I formed a band, I wrote a book, the book became a play, the play did a 4-week run in the West End, we toured it up and down the country. I've made 2 albums and an EP, we're about to start working on our 3rd album. You know, I used to think when I was sat outside that kebab shop trying to get a tenner together to fucking buy some smack, that life without drugs would be boring. There is nothing more boring than being a junkie, let me tell you. Nothing. Or an alcoholic, it's fucking rubbish. So the book is called Too High, Too Far, Too Soon. It's available on Amazon, but here's something that you might not expect me to say. Right? Don't buy it at the moment because we just negotiated a deal. I'm going to do an updated version because, like I said, I wrote it 8 years ago and it was published in 2013. So I've just sort of negotiating a deal that's going to have a republished new version with another 20,000 words, which is going to talk a lot more about much of what we spoke about tonight, about kind of what's happened over the years in recovery and music and football and all that kind of stuff, you know. So, you know, I mean, if people want to Kindle it, they can, but there's going to be another version out next year. Hightown Pirates have a Bandcamp page. If you want to support us financially by buying our albums, then Bandcamp is a really good site because we've got all our stuff up on there and you can pay as much or as little as you want. There's some vinyl available via there too. But if you don't want to, then the usual places, Spotify and SoundCloud and all that kind of stuff. We have a YouTube channel as well. We've got some videos up there. So it's all kind of there. There's also a Hightown Pirates, www.hightownpirates.net page, which has all our social media links. So that's kind of the easiest place to go to get everything else, really. And like I say, you know, I'm going to write an updated version of the book. We're going to make another record. We're going to make a documentary. And Liverpool are going to win the league next season as well.